Burning Bridges, an Aliens Fanfiction, written by Kruger, also known as Admiral Katz on fanfiction.net, at Sailing Bunny on Twitter, and the Sailing Rabbit on AVP Galaxy. Read by Kruger and edited by Denal Douglas. This story follows a different timeline to the current alien universe. Some characters have been changed to reflect this timeline. Chapter 5, 2135. Darkness fell over Sevastopol. Well, technically, it was always dark. The sun never rose or set. Darkness was usually in reference to the lights in public areas being turned off after a certain time, usually past 8. Aside from the night workers, everyone seemed to disappear. No one wanted to be walking the corridors when the lights were out. The workers paid no attention to Waits as he passed by. They probably thought he was just patrolling, and that was fine by him. After all, he was told not to tell anyone where he was going or what he was doing. When he arrived at the transit stop, he followed signs pointing toward the maintenance tunnel. It didn't take long to figure out why Lingard chose this place to meet. A sign had been bolted to the door of the tunnel, saying how the door was broken and that the workers had to find another way in. The other ways were 2 other tunnel entrances, miles away. The hall was silent. Waits watched a transit train rush by, nearly taking his cap off and ruffling his silver hair. He was far away from the platform, and the transit was going fast enough to where no one inside could see him, if they were even paying attention. He glanced around while pacing. "Okay, Lingard, I'm here. Where'd you go?" He got no response, so he figured he was early, or perhaps Lingard backed out at the last minute. He decided to wait, sitting with his back against the wall. How long had it been since he sat down? He felt pressure he didn't even know he had suddenly relieve itself in his lower back. And now I don't think I can get back up. Great. As he shifted to get himself comfortable, he noticed a figure approaching in the corner of his eye, and turned to see Lingard in civilian clothing. "I thought you'd be here already," he said. "Had a patient to deal with. Sorry. And my transit was running slow." Lingard sat next to him. "All right, so I really hope I don't regret this, but I'm going to trust you. Can you give me your word or something, anything, that you'll keep this between us?" "Cross my heart. You have to promise I can trust you too." "Deal." Lingard held out her hand. Waits squeezed it before letting go. "Okay, I think you have an idea of how everything's falling apart around here, and how we're pretty much waiting for the station to decommission. That much is obvious. What I wanted to ask is why you got so skittish and ran when all I asked was whether you wanted to go for coffee. Because I didn't know if that was what you really wanted. See, in all honesty, it's been years since anyone has talked to me like a person. They just see the senior medical officer, someone who has access to the most sensitive information about everyone on the station. At least, that's what Ransom sees. I think he's so bored here that he thoroughly enjoys tormenting people when he doesn't get his way in anything. He's asked me before to have documents on someone's health history. I think he claimed this person was a friend and he was doing a favor. I shouldn't have given him those papers, but he threatened to drag my name through the mud if I didn't do it again. My name, my career, anything. So I did it again. Not because I wanted to, but because if I sacrificed my career, there'd be one less doctor, and people could start to suffer. I couldn't let that happen. Since then, I give him what he wants and try to interact with him as little as possible." "You were afraid I'd do the same thing." Lingard nodded, eyes glistening with tears. "I haven't told anyone this before." "Feels good to get it off your chest, doesn't it?" She didn't respond. Waits turned to face her, and sighed. "You need a hug?" "Sure." "All right, come here." Waits opened his arms, letting Lingard hug him and cry in his shoulder. He put his arms around her, rubbing her back reassuringly, like he had done with his sister whenever she was upset, and sought his comfort. "I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know what to do about it," Lingard sobbed. "He's got people everywhere listening, even in the Marshal Bureau. I don't know if Hazelton's one of them." "If that's the case, I'll need some time to think of a plan, okay? This doesn't sound like something we can do overnight. Do you have information we can use against him?" Other than my own personal testimony, no. We'll need everything in writing. Documents, messages, anything. Until then, we can't do much of anything. Okay. We will do something, trust me. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't let anyone think that something's changed. We don't need anyone getting suspicious. I know things have gone bad here, but I'd rather leave knowing I tried to fix it than go out a miserable mess like everyone else. Lingard took a breath, her head still in Waits' shoulder. Thank you, Waits. No problem. Just, I wish you told me sooner. All along, I thought it was my fault you ran off. No, it wasn't your fault. I'm sorry for doing that to you. Lingard half pulled away from Waits, looking him in the eye. Silence fell over them, until a transit car flew by them. Waits's cap was blown askew. Lingard straightened it for him, prompting Waits to grab her jacket hood and yank it over her head. Hey! Lingard flicked the brim of Waits's cap. Don't touch my hat. You! Don't touch my hood! That brought a slight grin to Waits's face, until Lingard roughly turned his cap. They didn't stay there all night, although there was a part of Waits that would have been completely okay with that. It was a genuinely strange feeling. Strange, but good. Here was a human being who actually enjoyed his company. Lingard was the one who brought up going for coffee the next morning, and Waits accepted. It had been years since he went out with a woman for anything, and he wasn't even thinking about dating Lingard. No matter how much advice Esmeralda gave him, no matter how much advice some of his co-workers had given him, Waits had never held on to a girlfriend for more than a month. He had done everything from blind dates to hookups set up from another marshal, even just meeting people in stores and bars. Nothing seemed to work. Every relationship crashed and burned in some manner or another. Waits valued his job over companionship, even more so when his companionship couldn't respect that. His first relationship didn't even last a week when his date became a bit too needy, demanding to know why he never took her out, why he never called, never gave her gifts. He didn't dance around it, nor did he try to appease her by showering her with presents and attention. Out the door she went. His next date was no better. She lectured him on his workaholic nature, and how it wasn't good for him to be alone. Out the door she went, too. Waits eventually quit dating for a few years, then started again after a few incidents with his own family. He tried, over and over, to get along with Esmeralda's husband. Like with dating, nothing seemed to work. Ashton seemed convinced that Waits was bad for his nephew. Maybe he shouldn't have argued with Ashton over who could go into Esmeralda's hospital room the day after Micah was born. The fact that Em could hear the two men yelling at each other out in the hall had pained Waits for the last 33 years, and that guilt wasn't letting up any time soon. I should have just accepted that I'm not important anymore. He lost, and spent over an hour sitting in the hall, waiting until he was wanted in the room. He hated how Ashton watched him when Em let him hold the baby. That moment, which should have been sweet and tender, was forever tainted by the fact that his brother-in-law didn't trust him. Waits knew this could be the last time Micah would see him for a few years. Everyone in the room knew that. Why bother coming if you're never going to be around anyway? Ashton said. You can't let it go for one day, can you? Esmeralda glared at him. He's busy and he'll make time when he can. Waits wouldn't make time for almost 6 years. 6 years, and the arguing continued. It definitely didn't help that he was attending a birthday party for a 6-year-old. It also didn't help that Micah didn't recognize him, and didn't care. The kids tore around the house, and Waits went outside with a beer bottle. He sat on the steps, taking off the cap with an unlit cigarette in his mouth. It was nice to see the sun painting everything a golden color as it prepared to set. He hadn't seen sunlight or trees or green grass in a while. It was a calm moment, for once. Then again, it's always calm before a storm starts. Waits didn't go back inside until the noise quieted down, and he finished his smoke. He had missed Em cutting the cake for all the kids, prompting Ashton to break out the "you're never around" argument. Em shielded the children when Waits threw his empty beer bottle at Ashton. The glass shattered against the wall when Ashton ducked, and Waits decided he wasn't minding his manners around the kids anymore. Em immediately took the kids out of the house when Waits started swearing, and left them with a neighbor while she went back inside to get in between her brother and husband before things got out of control. He still wrote to Esmeralda. He was still updated on his nephew's life. He hated being literally distant, but he also didn't feel like quitting. Being a marshal got him away from home, but the loneliness followed him wherever he went. So he tried dating again. Like last time, he seemed to be involved with all the wrong people. Impatient, needy, selfish, unwilling to listen to him, often leaving him wondering what purpose he was serving, and so he gave up again. He didn't seek out Lingard because he was interested in her romantically. If he ever felt anything, that would be a bonus. As of now, she was just a friend. She was nice to him, offered him help when he was still suffering from post-cryo sickness. The night before, she trusted him with a horrible secret she had been harboring for some time. Doing so must have been hard for her. He figured it was only fair that he open up to her as well. Waits sat across from Lingard at an empty table in the food court. She was probably going to run right to San Cristobal afterward, since she was dressed in a clean uniform. He could understand, since he had to go right to the Marshal Bureau. Neither of them could stick around for too long. I don't know how you like your coffee, so I just got you a plain cup. Sorry. Waits gestured to a cup of black coffee. That's okay. Thanks for getting it for me. Yeah, not sure what you want for breakfast either, so that's on you. Actually, no. Here's $20. Give me the change, though. Thanks. I'll remember your change. Waits half expected Lingard to just keep the change, but when she returned, she placed his money next to his coffee cup. You're the first woman to ever give me my fucking change when I give her a 20 to get something. I'm guessing you haven't had many positive experiences if you put it that way. Not in the last 35 years. Wow, that long and no luck? I wish I was kidding. I have fairly rotten luck when it comes to dating. I guess the right person hasn't come along yet. I think it'll happen when you least expect it. I hope so. Kind of feels like it's, a little late for me. You never know until that special someone comes along. I haven't tried in years either. You're a doctor, you're busy, don't have time for relationships and feelings and all that fun garbage. Well, I imagine you're busy too. Yeah, people have gotten mad at me for that. Same. Although, usually it's to create false sympathy for themselves. They hate the "I'm busy" excuse. I never waste my time with people like that. Just show 'em out and forget they ever existed. I've never found that difficult, usually because I have a hard time getting emotionally attached to people, and it's only gotten harder. That and I used to drink. Well, I still drink, but not as much as I used to. I was able to get away with it because I was never on morning shifts, so no one would ever know I was hungover. I stopped when I did have a morning shift, and everybody saw me hungover. My superior at the time took me aside when I was feeling better and said, "You need to talk to somebody, Waits." And after I told him that I misjudged how much I could handle and I went through a bad relationship, he said, "I'm giving you a warning, because you're a good officer and this is your first time showing up hungover." After that, I mostly quit. I still drink, but I won't go until I'm face down in my own vomit. Plus, I was stationed at a colony later that didn't have any alcohol, period, so that kind of sort of kept me from screwing myself up. I thought it was in the code of the marshals not to drink. It's against the rules to be drunk on duty. They don't care how much you drink off duty, as long as you're not breaking the law while you're at it. Or showing up hungover. I only showed up hungover once, and I was lucky to have someone understanding to just give me a warning and let me go. I do care about my job, probably more than I should, but I care enough to where I don't need outside help. Sevastopol lost a good chunk of our specialized therapists about a year ago. Now all we have is Dr. Kuhlman. He did okay when he first arrived. Over the years, I think he's starting to suffer a little himself, and all he really does is give patients pills and doesn't actually work with them. There used to be a good system with all the people we had, and then they left. Can't imagine that was easy for you. The scary part is that it got easier. At the same time, I deal with a much bigger workload than anyone in my position should be dealing with. But I can't leave. I'd let so many people down. I get that. Really? Sure. I mean, I became a marshal because I wanted to leave home. But I know the core of my job is serving and protecting, and I'm good at it. To just quit would be the worst dishonor I could do to myself and everyone I've ever worked with. I don't know what I'm going to do when Sevastopol closes, but I know I can't really handle hypersleep very well anymore. I might just go to Gateway and stay until somebody orders me to retire. I can go wherever I want. Choosing where is a bit of a challenge. I guess Gateway doesn't sound bad. At least I'd have someone I know there. Waits looked down at the table, not wanting anyone to see him blush. It would be nice to not be completely alone again when transferring. That, and you wouldn't have to worry about ransom anymore. I don't think Seegson has offices on Gateway. Weyland-Yutani does, though. I think he'd prefer to mess around with their employees rather than people like you. He might still try to get their information through me, though. Not on Gateway. Gateway's controlled by the government, not Seegson. You'd be completely free to get help. Hell, you'd be able to get an investigation rolling if he doesn't die or disappear before Sevastopol closes. Waits glanced around, wary of the fact that Lingard had told him Ransom had people listening. I know the marshals are technically in charge here, but if you're right about Hazelton, then the only things that could take care of this mess would be a superior marshal removing Hazelton, or another Seegson exec, or the Marines take over. The Marines would have full authority over everyone, even the marshals. Ransom wouldn't be able to do a damn thing. And this isn't nearly enough to warrant calling the Marines. No, not unless people are getting killed and the marshals can't handle it. Trust me, that's a situation you don't want to be in. I've been in it a few times. They locked eyes for a moment, suddenly finding nothing to say. Lingard was the one to break eye contact and look at the clock. I better finish up and head to the hospital. Yeah, Hazelton's probably wondering what the hell I'm doing. Waite stood up and glanced at Lingard. Maybe we can do this again? If you want. Do you not want to? No, I mean, I would. I just don't know when. When would be good for you? Soonest would be tonight if Hazelton doesn't give me any night shifts. I might stay late at the hospital just in case I'm needed. I didn't last night, and I should. Okay, whatever works for you. Have a good day and take care of yourself, alright? You too. Waits set his coffee down and opened his arms for a brief hug from her, but saw she was already leaving the food court. $21.75. Gorman spotted Towers sitting by herself in the courtyard. She had a large book in hand, a scrapbook or album of some kind. Taking a breath, Gorman stepped outside, hoping he didn't scare Towers off. Hey, he said. What? Towers looked up at him, then went back to her book. Gorman could see it was empty. Just came to check on you, Gorman replied. I noticed you left the gym instead of hanging back and talking to Wade. Didn't feel like talking to anyone, Towers muttered. Especially not you. Gorman sat near her. In all honesty, I haven't been the best squad commander the last few days, and I'm sorry. I told myself that when I got to this position, I'd be not only a good commander, but I'd also be, a friend. I think we'll function better as a unit if we can have good relationships with each other. You're not going to tell me off and keep punishing me? At the moment, no. I actually came to tell you a story from when I was a private. I think you'll like it, and maybe you'll feel a bit more willing to listen to me when you hear it. See, I was a little mischievous, but not nearly as much as you. After graduating vent rat training... Wait, you're a vent rat? Gorman nodded. God, you're so stiff I'm surprised you can crawl in a vent. Anyway, I graduated training, was assigned to my first unit, and things got boring very, very fast. My sergeant was a fairly easygoing guy, gave us some freedom but knew how to be a leader. I went out to the city and found a cassette tape full of Irish humor, quotes, insults, you name it. I listened to it and thought, what if I hide this in Clark's office and play it? I knew there was no way I could actually put it in his office, so I put it in the wall. Crawled up in the vents, found the shaft leading to Clark's office, and set the player by the vent cover. A small grin formed on Towers' face. Was he pissed? He almost tore up the wall when he realized the voice was coming from the vent. He was immensely pissed when he found out it was me who did this, and made me run laps around the track until I threw up. I learned my lesson after the run, because I didn't want to do that ever again. You're not going to do that to me, are you? Gorman shook his head. No, I won't. I promise. Unless you really drive me up the wall. Then I might have to. For now, I won't. For now. Towers smirked. Things fell silent, then Gorman turned to face Towers again. I should also apologize for sounding like your father. Towers looked down at her blank book. You don't have to apologize for that. You're not my dad. You don't even look like my dad. My dad wouldn't even take the time to talk and apologize like what you're doing. You're already 1,000 times better than any drill instructor is. Gorman thought for a moment. I'm going to guess you feel like people don't listen to you. Did you grow up in a house of 6 siblings? It's not as tight-knit as people think big families are. It sucked. Everyone's always yelling and nobody's problems get heard. The youngest just happened to crap his diaper every time I had a chance to just talk to Mom. Messing up was the only way to get anyone's attention. Achievements? Who the fuck cares? Oldest sister got into the college she wanted? Great. Nothing else was said. She left without so much as a goodbye. While their brother led the high school football team to the state championship and won? Great. Nothing else was said. Me enlisting? Just a goodbye. Nothing else. I'm sorry that happened to you, Gorman said. I guess that's why you were deliberately fucking up in front of me, because that's the only way you knew how to get any individual attention. Little bit. Like I told you before, a part of me really enjoys it. You did mention that, and I think I understand you a bit better now. Of course, I won't lay my final judgment on you until I see you in combat. I certainly hope you don't act like this on the field. No, I think the only reason they kept me in boot camp was because I performed so well in the field tests. Shocked everyone. Good. Now, I'm giving you a second chance, okay? I don't want any more backtalk. Can you do that for me? Much to Gorman's surprise, Towers nodded. All right, that's really all I wanted to discuss with you. Is there anything you'd like to talk about with me? Not really. Towers glanced down at her book, then back up at Gorman as he stood up. Hey, Gunny? Yeah? Gorman looked over his shoulder. Thanks for listening. Guess you're not as much of a hard-ass as I thought you were. Gorman smirked. No problem. The only thing that really changed was Towers' attitude toward Gorman in front of the other Marines, which was definitely a shock to some. The pranks, however, stayed. Gorman awoke the next morning to find Towers had drawn a heart on his mirror with his shaving cream, and under it were the words, Sergeant Hardass, followed by a winking smiley face. He sighed, a little unsure of how to feel at first, but he figured this was harmless enough to not mention. At breakfast, all he did was give Towers a look, and no words were said.